Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating academic study of Thai law students to understand the hidden underlying demographic drivers behind ethical decision-making. Look, we all know that ethical leadership is basically the bedrock of a functioning society, right? But where do those ethics actually come from? Well, today, we're going to explore some incredible research conducted by Dr. Bahudin Mujtaba and his colleagues to uncover exactly how our age, our gender, and our deep-rooted cultural philosophies intersect to build our professional moral compass. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with why business ethics matter, explore the lens of Thai culture and Buddhism, look at how we test future legal leaders, analyze the hard data on age and gender, and finally answer the million-dollar question, can ethics actually be taught? But before we even glance at the data, we've got to ask ourselves a pretty fundamental question. Are ethics purely intrinsic? Or do things like our demographics and life experiences actively shape our moral maturity? It's the classic age-old debate, isn't it? Are some people just magically born with a stronger sense of right and wrong? Or do our years on this earth, and even our gender, fundamentally alter the way we handle a moral dilemma at work? Let's start broad with Section 1. Why business ethics matter. We really need to establish exactly why these principles are so absolutely critical in the modern professional landscape. So the crucial thing to understand about moral development is that it is not static, not at all. It's a continuous, lifelong journey of learning how to evaluate right from wrong. The researchers emphasize that morality fundamentally brings norms into our lives. It plays a directive role, encouraging or discouraging specific conduct. Basically, it's a progressive evolution of how we continuously rank our values as we go through life. And to understand why this progressive evolution matters so much, we literally only need to look back at the devastating corporate scandals of Enron, Tyco, and Bernie Madoff. I mean, these catastrophic failures show us exactly what happens when unchecked greed and the blind pursuit of profit completely override moral development. It just leaves countless innocent bystanders in its wake. At the end of the day, without integrity, you simply cannot be a good leader. Moving right along to Section 2, Thai culture and Buddhism. We're going to zoom in and look at the cultural lens of Thailand, a society that's deeply influenced by some very specific religious and agrarian principles. Have you ever heard of Kohlberg's stages of moral reasoning? It basically maps out how humans ideally mature, starting from when we're kids just trying to avoid punishment, all the way up to embracing universal morality as adults. Now, what's incredibly fascinating here is that prior research in Thailand actually found that the moral and ethical concerns in many Thai teenagers and adults tend to pause in the third stage, which is conforming to group norms. Understanding this cultural progression is essential when we're trying to figure out how future leaders might handle a tough workplace dilemma. To truly grasp Thai ethical values, we have to start with the Buddhist concept of dukkha. This loosely translates to the suffering or anxiety we feel when our goals clash with reality. Over 95% of Thailand identifies as Buddhist, which means concepts like merit and sin are woven into daily life right from childhood. Dukkha happens when there is a real, unmanageable gap between what we desperately want to happen and what is actually happening. And that builds directly into anicca. Think of this as the vital recognition that everything around us is impermanent and constantly changing. I mean, even a solid rock is gradually worn down by rain, right? By internalizing anicca, Thai professionals are culturally conditioned to be relatively open to change and accepting of loss. They view the entire business landscape as fluid rather than fixed. Finally, we have anatta. This is the concept of non-substantiality, teaching that there is basically no permanent, unchanging self, meaning we must remain incredibly flexible to avoid that suffering we just talked about. Unlike a lot of Western cultures, which are always telling us to go find our real self, this principle suggests we are just an ever-changing compound of conditions. We have to adjust to our environment with immense flexibility. To manage all that, Thai people use the Eightfold Path. And let me be clear, these core Buddhist principles deeply, deeply influence how they approach major business and ethical decisions. From proper livelihood to proper mindfulness, these aren't just high-level religious concepts. They are the actual foundational framework for navigating professional ethics in the Kingdom of Thailand. All right, with that vital cultural context in place, let's jump into Section 3, Testing Future Legal Leaders. Let's look at the actual survey of these law students. The researchers successfully surveyed a solid group of 216 Thai law students in the Saran province. They were measuring what's called a Personal Business Ethics Score, or PBES. This score measures an individual's commitment to integrity and following business laws. The scale is pretty straightforward. It ranges from 11, which indicates low ethics, all the way up to 55, indicating very high personal business ethics. So the study specifically set out to test two distinct demographic variables. They wanted to know, does age or gender significantly impact these scores? The researchers hypothesized that older students might naturally score higher just because of life experience, and they also really wanted to empirically test the assumption that men and women approach moral reasoning differently. Which leads us to Section 4, Age, Gender, and Ethics. Okay, let's get right into the hard data and see what the statistics actually reveal. The results show that older students scored a significantly higher mean. The students aged 26 and older scored an average of 35.03, while the folks 25 and younger scored 33.35. Simply put, as these future lawyers grow older and gain life experience, they are absolutely developing a much more mature ethical framework. Now, what about that second variable, gender? The female law students achieved a notably higher mean score than their male counterparts. The women averaged a 35.03 compared to the men's 33.63. So the data heavily suggests that female law students in this demographic are approaching workplace dilemmas with a stronger degree of moral maturity. Let's zoom back out for our fifth and final section. Can ethics be taught? This is arguably the most important question for any modern business leader looking at this data. The researchers note that females often hold more idealistic views. In fact, they suggest that our global society might just be a bit more peaceful if women were more involved in corporate decision-making. Because women often lean toward a care orientation, prioritizing relationships and empathy in their moral development, integrating those perspectives into upper management could profoundly shift corporate culture away from the reckless greed we saw in cases like Enron. But here is the absolute biggest takeaway. As Newbaum points out, education remains the strongest predictor of cognitive moral development. That proves that ethics absolutely can and must be taught. While age and gender give us our baseline tendencies, it's structured ethics instruction using real case studies, philosophy, and practical applications that actively makes people less likely to engage in unethical behavior. So I'm going to leave you with a final thought today. How can you apply these incredible cultural and demographic insights to elevate the ethical decision-making in your own organization? We've seen clearly that ethical maturity doesn't just happen by accident, right? It's this compound effect of our cultural grounding, the lived experience we get as we age, our demographic perspectives, and most importantly, our ongoing education. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really challenge you to look at your own professional environment today and ask yourself, are we doing enough to actively build the moral compass of our teams?